Glad you could join us. Now, the Minister of Health, Kweku Agyeman, has urged health workers in the country to eschew workplace politics because of the threat it poses to public administration. Mr. Agyeman was speaking at a meeting with management of the various health facilities, as well as municipal and district health directors in the Brong-Ahafo region in Sunyani.
I've never believed in workplace politics anywhere that I've worked. But it looks like in our country, that's what is like a culture. Wherever you go, you will find traces of people trying to urge people away to take certain positions, people talking bad mouth against other people, we ourselves criticizing so much. Those things don't come out well for you. I want to think that we need to create a very peaceful, friendly environment where we work. There are problems. Let us confront them with management. Manager, this scenario we don't think will help us. Manager, there's somebody here who is doing something we think should be rooted out. And that will be better. That's always forming groups in areas and talking against other people and doing several things that will not help our productivity and what have you.
The health minister also urged heads of the facilities to promptly deal with audit queries in order to avoid being dragged to parliament.
So, management in all the facilities and wherever you are, that attend to the audit queries as quickly as you can and issue sanctions. If there are programs, we cover them before they go into audit committee's reports. As quickly as you can work on them. If the auditors say they are criminal, let the police get to know before they come to parliament. Because when we meet there, I can't answer the questions. I will ask each individual to answer.
Now, the Minister of Interior, Ambrose Derry, has given the strongest indication that government will not relent in its efforts to resource the immigration service to be more resolute at the country's borders. According to the Interior Minister, the prevailing threats posed by terrorists and other forms of transnational criminals have made government more responsive to providing the needed resources. Mr. Derry was addressing the cadet intake graduation at the Immigration Services Academy at Aksinfosu in the Central Region.
It has become more compelling now than ever to strengthen and streamline the management of our borders, considering the prevailing threats of terrorism and other forms of transnational crimes across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it is against this background that there is a need for continuous training and retraining for officers at all levels. Security operatives of your caliber are expected to be on top of your job and be abreast with modern techniques and best practices globally. They need to enlist, train, and deploy more officers into the senior officer corps. To take up leadership responsibilities has become imperative in the view of the expanded scope of the mandate of the service. The need to strengthen border security and ensure effective border management is paramount. I would therefore urge you all to step up your border patrols and controls to protect the territorial integrity and security of the country, serving as first line of defense at the various borders. I am glad to inform you that the government has recently provided the service with 10 Toyota Hilux pickups, 20 all-terrain vehicles, ATVs, and 25 motorbikes to enhance its operation.
Now, chief fishermen and locals in coastal communities are to be empowered to enforce laws on sustainable fishing practices. A new policy to be adopted by government soon is expected to decentralize management of the fisheries sector. With a fish stock set to be on the decline, the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development is hoping co-managing fishing activities with local leaders will help sustain fisheries resources. Joy News' Adelaide Arthur was at the Ancobra estuary and reports locals there are involved in co-managing a mangrove replanting exercise supported by USAID's Sustainable Fisheries Management Project.
Here at San Homa in the Elembele district of the Western region, a mangrove restoration project is ongoing at the Ancobra estuary. Allowing mangroves to thrive is crucial as they serve as breeding grounds for some fish species. But locals here cut the trees for fish processing. They say the red mangroves especially gives good flavor. As fish stocks continue to dwindle, it's become necessary to undertake the mangrove replanting project to restore and sustain fisheries resources. Residents of San Homa, who depend on fishing for their livelihood, have been made to understand why it is necessary to replace mangroves they cut for fish processing.
We used to get good catch when there were lots of mangoes. In recent times, we've realized fish stock is declining. We are hoping that with the replanting project, the trend will reverse. I take part in the planting of mangoes and nursing of seedlings.
About an hour's boat ride from where the Ancobra River enters the sea, over 25,000 mangroves have been planted on 18 hectares of degraded mangrove sites along the river banks, which is the size of about 18 football pitches. There are also 20,000 seedlings waiting to be planted.
The big question is, how sustainable is this, given that many people are entering into mangrove harvesting as a source of livelihood? So that is why we are working with them, to develop new practices. So we have trained them in practices we call sustainable mangrove harvesting. With sustainable mangrove harvesting, the skills and knowledge that you gain will ensure that harvesting is done in a way that will not result in clear cutting of mangrove areas to the extent that the whole area become recolonized by grass or other species that takes over the mangrove areas.
The importance of fishing cannot be underestimated, as statistics show that about 10% of Ghana's population depends on the fisheries sector. Also, fish provides about 60% of total protein intake in Ghana. Supported by the USAID Sustainable Fisheries Management Project, the mangrove restoration program is being undertaken by NGO Hen Puano together with locals as part of fisheries co-management practice where traditional authorities can sanction lawbreakers.
Once it is a participatory process, everybody knows that when I do this, this is the fine I'm going to get. If I do that, this is what I'm going to get. So it is not something that is going to come out of the blue. They themselves will sit down and agree on what fines. And the policy is such that you do it within your small locality where you are managing the resource, and therefore you can come up with the rules. The traditional authorities have their rules already. All these things we have to codify, and then it becomes the community rule, so everybody abides by it.
With a membership of 45, including representation from the local traditional council, the Ancobra Mangrove Restoration Committee oversees progress of the project and is expected to map out strategies to sustain the practice.
Initially, they were not supporting us, but through the intervention of Yampuano and through talking to our people about the importance of the mangroves, I think now they are in supporting of us. It's better we, the community people, should manage the project in our own area.
Recognized as global best practice, co-management of fisheries resources at the Ancobra and Praia estuaries in the Western region is seen by authorities as rewarding, and is expected to be replicated in other coastal communities to enhance food and nutritional security. Adelaide Arthur, Joy News, San Homa, Western Region.
Meanwhile, official folks at Anlo Beach and 10 other communities in the Western region have adopted safe fishing practices to ensure there's fish for future generations in the Pra estuary. They have come up with regulations such as fishing in non-designated spots and using bigger nets to avoid catching fingerlings, for which they can be fined if they break the rules. And it appears to be working, as Joy News' Adelaide Arthur found out from Anlo Beach, where the USAID is supporting sustainable fishing practices.
Here at San Homa in the Elembele district of a welcome song from women of Anlo Beach, for whom fish processing is a major livelihood. But fishermen and fishmongers here, like those in other coastal communities, have been struggling with low catch due to declining fish stocks. And so, when the USAID Sustainable Fisheries Management Project initiated an intervention to ensure there is fish for the future, it was a welcome relief for community members. Locals from 11 neighboring communities are now managing tilapia harvesting by instituting their own closed season under the supervision of Friends of the Nation, which is partnering USAID SFMP.
So they realized that the estuary is the point of entry for the fishes. So they chose that place as a closed area. So which means that that place will be permanently closed to fishing activities. So the Bedoji that they chose as closed season was as a result of May to July. They said that this is the season that you will see most of the fishes spawning. When I talk about fishes spawning, that's the pregnant fishes, they will give birth. That's where you see most of them spawning. So they even themselves, out of this project, they even know that, oh, we have some places that when we go, we know that the fishes that you catch them, most of them are fingerlings. So we should protect them.
A few minutes' drive from the Anlo Beach community is a woodlot plantation where 10 acres of acacia trees have been planted. This is an alternative for wood being offered to fish processors who use mangroves to smoke fish. The move is necessary to ensure mangroves, which serve as breeding grounds for fish, are conserved.
Every fish processor is entitled to 2 plots, but it comes at a fee because of sustainability purposes. We subsidize it for you to cut it for 2 months. After the 2 months, then you leave it for it to grow by itself again. Then we continue to cut it. We started 2015 to plant this woodlot, the acacia woodlot plantation, and by 2020 they should start harvesting the first plant.
Some residents believe this conservation practice will benefit communities along the Pra River and want lawbreakers punished.
The rules must be enforced so that people will stop disposing refuse into the sea and using unapproved net to fish. I have even learned that plastic bags are harmful to fish. Those who flout the law should be punished.
The locals, according to Friends of the Nation, now appreciate why they need to jealously protect the Pra estuary, a great spot for fish breeding. Adelaide Arthur, Joy News, Anlo Beach, Western Region.
Still watching Joy News today, I am Daniel Dazi. Stories go by so far. Health Minister Kweku Agyemang-Manu has cautioned health officials in the country against workplace politics, warning it has serious negative effects on public administration. Also, government has announced plans of adequately resourcing the immigration service to boost their work at the country's various borders. And up ahead, we'll tell you the new innovation being introduced to cut the costs of housing. Justice Wade will be taking us on a journey to see people who use plastic bottles to build houses. But that's up ahead on Joy News Today. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now, the high cost of housing in Ghana has prevented many prospective home buyers from accessing the housing market. The country now has a housing deficit of about 1.7 million. A new initiative seeking to use plastic bottles in building homes may help cut the cost of building while saving the environment of the filth. In the following report, my colleague Justice Beidou visited the Ashanti regional town of Kantintrain to see how the innovation works and sent us this report.
Tons and tons of waste, like what you see here, continue to flood many gutters and waterways. Scenes like this is what will greet you in several cities across the country. It's not just a good breeding ground for mosquitoes, but it's also one of the many reasons that cause the occasional flooding that hits the city. Now that is about to change. In the heart of Kumasi, this young man is moving from house to house, picking used plastic bottles. And what they use it for is what makes all the difference. In Kantintrain, a small community just outside Kumasi, the villagers here are putting the empty bottles to use, building a structure for their community KVIP.
We are serious with this building. We would get a toilet now to help us end open defecation. From this, we can even build our own house.
It's a trial building that hopefully will be adopted by others in putting up their own homes.
Where we are, there's an entrance to the corridors.
James Kumsin is the man teaching these villagers the innovation.
The plastic bottle is very durable. It also soundproof and also serves as fire resistance. So in the case of any fire outbreak, the block will go down, whereby this one, or the block will flame, because heat have a certain degree that the block can go. But the bottles also have a certain degree because of we fill it with the sun. When, in the case of any fire outbreak, the sun can recover the fire outbreak faster than the normal block.
Ghana currently has a housing deficit of about 1.7 million, largely due to the high cost of putting up a building. As government grapples with how to address the housing challenge, the people of Kantintrain seem to have taken a comfortable lead, showing the way on how to build for less. Justice Beidou, Joy News, Kantintrain.
Now, a professor of tourism at the University of Cape Coast is calling for a leisure policy in Ghana to shore up productivity, innovation, and to reduce the level of stress-related diseases. According to Professor Eric Amokwando, there is no regard for leisure in the country, a situation he says makes parents subject their kindergarten pupils to extra classes. Reflecting on the leisure situation in Ghana at his inaugural lecture at the University of Cape Coast, Professor Amokwando was convinced the lack of innovation, creativity and productivity in Ghana is attributable to a complete disregard for leisure in the country. Richard Kojonyako has more.
In Ghana, most parents consider leisure participation as a waste of time and therefore prefer to enroll their wards in extra classes. We find ourselves in a period that nursery people are even engaged in extra classes.
That's Professor Erica Mokwando, a professor of tourism at the University of Cape Coast, expressing his dissatisfaction at how some parents completely disregard the essence of leisure when schools have mandatorily vacated to enable school pupils take a rest. According to him, countries like Japan, US, and the rest have leisure policies that keep its citizens active always. He alluded to biblical analogies in Genesis where God, even after creation, took a day off not only to rest, but also to reflect on all that He's made. The concept of rest, he explains, is also embedded in the Ghanaian culture, where most of our traditional societies rely on taboos to provide rest for their residents and other life, such as plants and animals. In the coastal areas, for instance, fishermen were barred from going fishing on Tuesdays, while their counterparts in the farming communities are prevented from going to farm on certain days. Professor Mokwando believes non-compliance of these stifles creativity and innovation and creates a dormant society. He is unhappy about the sorry state in which roads leading to some tourist sites and some unsafe sites in the country.
On the average, 4 people get drowned along the Ghanaian coast on each public holidays. On 1st July 2015, about 20 children sustained various degrees of injuries as a result of collapse of Bunsu Canopy Walkway. Our leisure sites have to be safe, but unfortunately, people go and they don't return home. From Cape Coast to Kakum is just 30 kilometers, but it takes drivers, visitors, more than an hour to get to Kakum. And if you visit TripAdvisor sites, you realize that the attention is on the road more than the canopy walkway. The road has become an attraction.
He is calling for a strict enforcement for periods allowed for rest for workers, students, and improvements in the country's leisure sites.
We are not simulating the interests of our children in leisure. Parents, you don't go on leave. So as I stand here, my daughters will be asking, what is daddy talking about? Because they have not seen me going on leave or going on vacation. We need to get leisure models and leisure champions.
Richard Kwejunyako, Joy News, Cape Coast.
Now, it's indeed true that the best is saved for last, and that's exactly what happened on the Volta Lake when patrons went kayaking. The team conquered Ogwa, overcame the 885 meters at Afajato, walked on water at Nzulezu, and crowned it all with a ride on the Volta Lake. My colleague MFA Nancy Dwadosi has been to all 4 tours and brings us a showdown of all you've missed on the trips.
Well, let's take you back to the beginning of this journey. So we did rapping at Ogwa Conquest, Jama at Afajato, some bonfire night at Nzulezu. This time we had lots of activities. From sacrificing our breakfast to feed baboons on the way, to having 2 groups in the bus disagree over music played in the vehicle. Now, little did they know that they had to save all that energy and breath for the real action. First, the trekking. 3.5 kilometers. Now, don't worry. It's actually nothing compared to the 885 meters at Afajato. As soon as I got to the shore, some people were already in the water, trying to prove a point that they are pros, making the rest of us feel like we came to dance.
Okay, so now I need everybody behind the kayak.
That's cool. That's all I've been waiting for.
So what is basically going to happen is that all of you are going to get into your kayaks, okay? And then we'll teach you a few paddling techniques, okay? And then we'll shoot off. But we are going to be grouped together because every group, there are going to be 4 groups in all, Alpha 1 to Alpha 4, all right? And so you need to stick together. Every one of you will have a ranger with you. Your job basically is to listen to his instructions and do as he says. Once you do that, you'll be fine. If he asks you at some point to capsize your kayak, you will have to do so. If you don't, we will capsize you, okay?
But before that, they had to teach a few of us how to float on water because we had no clue.
Like a butterfly, are your feet suspended? Butterfly. They touch the ground, push it up, push your feet up. Okay, that's it. That's how you float. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, there you go. Good job. Oh my God! Now,
I won't. Look. I won't.
Okay, so don't panic, just relax.
Oh, me, I don't panic, sir.
Cool.
But we are sinking.
Easy. Easy. Arms open. Arms open for balance. Very good. Okay. Yep, that's it. So that's how you float.
The guy is drinking the water.
Good job. Okay. Butterfly. Head back. Head back.
After enjoying the ride in our kayaks, the instructor asked us to capsize.
Right or left?
Right there. Right there.
You want to capsize?
Hey, hold your boat. Hold your kayak. Don't go anywhere. Okay. Now you should go so we can. Save you. Now we know we are coming. Hold it. Hey! You make there's something floats in water. Can we come back? I'm not into it. Are you able to lift your leg higher? Give me your hand.
Hey.
Look at them. It's time to head to the survival island. After a few drinks and some food, others had to rest. Some will just not want to stay away from water.
Evans Mensa.
It was time to play a game.
Go down on Athena, turn left on Zeus, turn left on Andromeda until you get to the spider web. And your leader will tell you what to do at the spider web. Okay, here we go.
It's a game where a group of 7 people will have to look for a spider web and make sure that each member of this group passes through the web without touching the ropes.
I get it going.
So you are like this to get?
Yeah, you go one. Yes, that is bigger. It's bigger, so
yeah.
For him.
Yeah.
For him. Okay. And the body not try to cut. Yes. You have to try and be as safe as you can.
So you go back. Okay.
So it's closed.
All over again.
Wow.
Okay. Yay, you made it.
Okay, he made it.
Me.
Wait. Please hold on. Okay, you are taking the picture.
The guys are going first.
No, relax. Yeah. Good. So move your holding. Legs up.
Careful.
Be
straight. Be straight.
Help. Somebody help with the middle.
Go.
Careful.
Okay. No, relax.
No, wait.
Don't go down yet.
Wait.
Go down.
Let me go down like that. Watch your hand.
Good.
No touching.
No touch. Okay. Take it easy. Just come forward. Come forward. Go forward. Go.
Careful, watch your hand.
Great. Nice.
Yes!
Okay.
We had fun, didn't we?
Oh, it's so nice. It's a nice experience. Floating in the water, paddling, everything it's good. I mean, everyone should experience it.
It's been a learning experience. It's been fun. I was saying earlier that if we had done this before in Zulunzu, we would have enjoyed the waters of Zulunzu better. But
we've had a long day. Let's go home now.
We're going too early. I want to be here. I want to be here for the whole day. I'm not ready to leave.
It's not like you're swimming. When we came, you were scared of the water. Now you are all ready to leave here.
Yeah, I just settled. So I wish we would stay for long.
Sorry, dear. This is where we draw the curtains on the Joy FM Fantastic 4. We promise to bring you more exciting trips like this next time. You wouldn't want to miss that. Nancy Emefadradosi, Joy News.
And that's it for today's bulletin of Joy News. Today, I am Daniel Dazi. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. Thanks for joining us. Keep watching Joy News.